You need to differentiate yourself to stand out from the competition. And in order to do that, you've got to get creative with your business. Well, we all have those days where being creative just isn't happening. But with everything moving so quickly in the online space, it's absolutely necessary. So, how is it that you can go about boosting your creativity so you can actually make more money doing the things that you love? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips to help you do just that. And if you want the show notes, then be sure to drop the word creative to get them, because if you've been following my lives, you know that I tend to go pretty fast and cram it full of information. But drop the word creative and I will send the show notes your way. All right. My name is Joyce Lehman, and I work with coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs to help them leverage their unique message and their mindset so they can stand out online, sell more services, and make a bigger impact without getting overwhelmed in the process. And I do this using my Incubator Foundations framework. Well, today we're going to be diving into creativity. And one of the things that I get pushback from the folks that I talk to is some people think that you're either born being creative or you're not. Well, that's not the case. There are lots of things that you can use to spark creativity when it comes to creating your offers, coming up with content for social, even different ways of working with your clients. So the first thing that you want to do is be open to new ideas. You never know where that next best idea is going to come from in your business. Now, I do want to differentiate. I am not talking about shiny object syndrome, where you are jumping from one idea to the next. This is about getting creative with something specific that you're looking to accomplish in your business right now. So, with that, is if you expose yourself regularly to new information, this is new thought leaders. If, now that the world has been opening back up, if you're going to workshops, you're going to events, you're following thought leaders online, when you expose yourself to new ideas, then it helps get your creative juices flowing. Now, one of the tips that I'm going to give you is using your reticular activating system. It's called your RAS. It's located in the central cortex of your brain. If you think about it, it's like this mental filter. And what it's designed to do is it recognizes value and it recognizes threats. It's been hardwired in us from the hunter-gatherer days for thousands and thousands of years through evolution. So how you use your RAS is when you're open to new ideas and you have something specific that you are looking to accomplish. This is the difference between setting a goal and not setting a goal. When you set a goal, this is something that you know that you want to do. So you've got that idea, right? You know that you need to be creative, but you're not quite sure how you're going to get there. When you're open to new ideas, then it lets your reticular activating system spot opportunities. Now, to be very, very clear on this, this is not law of attraction. This is cognitive science. It's how your brain works. It's how your brain filters information. If you think back, the last time you bought a car and you drove it off the lot, you started to see that car everywhere in that color. That had nothing to do, it had nothing to do with law of attraction. It became important. So your brain goes, oh, well, here's this and here's this and here's this, and it starts to see it. So how you can use that in the creativity process is when you're open to new ideas, and say it's like, you want to create a new offer or you want to introduce a new product in your business and you're not quite sure how that, what that's going to be. When you recognize that you want to do it, you're open to new ideas, then your reticular activating system starts to go to work to spot resources, information. Sometimes it's connections, but that means getting open first. So that's that first step in step 1. Hopefully that makes sense. I am a total mindset junkie. I went through the Pacific Institute's training back in 2005, based in cognitive psychology and social learning theory, and I facilitated the training for years. And so it's always something that I love to use when I'm working with clients, and of course, sharing this on lives with you. Now, the other thing when it comes to new ideas, brainstorm with somebody else. Because so often when we get focused on, we're not quite sure where to look, ask other people. This is a great way that you can, post something out on social and say, give me some insight, give me some feedback, because you'll be amazed at how other people see things other than you are, because we tend to get so focused. All right. So that is step number one. And I definitely using notes on this to make sure that I don't get off track. So also, when you're open to looking at things from a different perspective, then you see things in a different light. All right. So here's tip number two. Research what other people are doing in your same space. So one of the best ways to spark creativity is go look at what your competition is doing. To be very clear, you're not going to copy what your competition is doing, but when you go look to see what they are doing, then that's when you have that ability to uncover that gap. Something that when you look at what your offer is and your target market, if there's something that they're not offering, you've got your own spin, your own secret sauce, your own framework, your own process. In that case, then looking at what your competition is doing is a fantastic way to spark creativity. So look at what they're doing well and where you think that you could improve on. Then when you think about how you do things differently, it's like, what's your unique perspective? What can you do to make it better? But ultimately, it's about filling that gap that your competitors might leave open. So research what others are doing in your space. The other thing to consider is maybe you work locally. Your business is located more geographically than a niche, which is, with me, I work with different individuals. They can be all over the world, but my niche is who I work with. If your client base is geographically located within your city, still research other competitors that are all over the country. Don't just research one area. And also look at competitors that are of the similar size business, and then go look at the big names. Because guess what? The bigger the name, the more revenue that they make, then that means they're spending more money on marketing. They're spending more money. You can look and see what type of conversations are going on. And I just realized it when I sat down. Now that we're starting to get into fall, the sun has shifted. So I'm noticing that this light is coming up in the view. Anyway, it's all good. All right. So number two is go research others in your space. All right. Tip number three, this was a big lesson I had to learn. Let go of control. Too often we get set in our ways, and what happens is we develop what's called scotomas. It's a Greek word for blind spot. It's how you'll literally look at something and not see it. If you've ever had that experience that you've been running around the house, you're busy, you're late to a meeting, whatever, your mind is going 100 miles an hour, and you keep saying you can't find your keys and they're in your hand and somebody else has to point it out, that is a great example of a scotoma. So if you want to make sure that you don't have scotomas, well, first off, it's asking others for their insight because they see things differently. But when it's letting go of control of, this is how things are supposed to be. When I used to work with companies and teams, it was, it's the culture. It was the way that we did things around here. Even as individual business owners, you can still get stuck in that way. So let go of control. It's so important when you're wanting to spark creativity. Be open that there's another way that you can accomplish the same thing. You might not be aware of it yet. Make sense? All right. So, and truly, when I was back in sales, in fact, I've been in sales my entire career, 25 plus years, but I was almost like Sheldon Cooper on the couch. Big Bang Theory fans can relate. I would get so stuck and say, it had to go this way. It had to go this way. It was so bad. If my schedule got off kilter, it completely threw me off base. So that's why letting go of control. There are days that things are going to be completely out of your control. But when it comes to sparking creativity, the other thing it does is you're like, oh, there's a completely different way to do things. Also think back to the start of the pandemic. Entire industries were disrupted. This is how we came into work and how systems worked and how teams collaborated together. And it got disrupted literally overnight. But look at the innovation that came about because of it. They didn't let go of control. They had to let go of control. So it makes it a little easier if you're more willing to do that versus it being thrown on you. But this, like I said, don't be a Sheldon Cooper. I'm no longer like that. But I used to be that way, 20 plus years ago. All right. Now, if you did not catch that, I go pretty quick with the show notes. So if for any reason that you want the show notes, drop the word creative. I promise that I will get them to you after the live. And also know I have some people that are like, I am not going to comment live, or they had issues with tech. Send me a DM. I'm also happy to get you the show notes as well. All right. So let's hide that. All right. So the other thing about control and about sparking creativity, this also means that you got to give yourself quiet time. I don't know about you. I have this ability. I'll sit down at my desk and I keep going and I want to get creative, but I've got all technology. Goodness gracious, we live with our phones. So it's letting go, but it's also letting that information just flow in. One of my favorite things to do is we have woods behind our house and trails. So there are sometimes when I get stuck that I just get out on the trail. I go for a walk. I get away from what it is that I am doing. And maybe you've had that instance where you've gotten in your car, or even you're in the shower, or maybe you're making dinner and that perfect idea pops in. That's your subconscious going back to that's your Raz at work, but you've got to give yourself quiet time for that information to be able to come through. So being flexible is important, but you also want to give yourself quiet time to let your Raz do the work with that. All right. Number 4, this is also kind of a control thing. Don't be afraid to experiment. If we get set in a certain way and we think this is how it's supposed to be, but you're not willing to try new things, or you are afraid of trying new things, I totally get that. I have clients that are terrified of tech. I used to be terrified of tech until I made a $13,000 website mistake back in 2008 when I started my business. But then I realized that tech can be it is my best friend. It's one of those things that helps you save so much time, but there's also those learning curves that have to do with that. So maybe this idea that you have is going to involve tech. Don't be afraid to experiment. Now, that doesn't mean you go invest a ton of money in a major platform. There are ways that you can experiment that aren't going to cost you money. They might cost you time, but figure out ways that you can do that. So you got to consider, it's like, what have you had to lose? If you don't try it, you're going to end up staying stuck in the same way. So figure out how you can experiment and see what's going to happen. Then think about different methods and tools, right? What are some other ways to go about it? So say, for example, you want a new onboarding experience with your client. If you've always done a phone call, then maybe there's that way that you can add an automation in with the phone call. So you have 2 different ways to onboard somebody, because people learn differently. So maybe, as I said, that's a different method or tool that you're going to try when you're experimenting in the process, or experiment new ways of working with clients. So, as I mentioned before, with the pandemic, we went from everything I was doing with my clients was in person. All of my clients were local to Kansas City. And when the pandemic came about, guess what? I had to work with clients virtually. So think about how you currently work with your clients. What is another way that you can add additional value or additional touch points? So maybe like higher level clients, private clients, and then clients that do a VIP, a clarity session with me, they get Slack access. I never thought about Slack before, but it's a great way that you can very easily communicate with clients without actually picking up the phone or texting, because everything is there. So as I said, it's, what have you got to lose? Experiment with methods and tools, and then also experiment with different ways that you're going to work with your clients, but don't be afraid to experiment. You can always go back to the way that you've done something. And then again, the feedback that you get, your clients or prospective clients may say, I absolutely love this. Also think about that too with how you're marketing your business. If the only thing that you're doing is sending out, to your email list, you are sending out or posting in a group, but you haven't really experimented or done anything with going live or reels or things like that, then how can you break things up, make things a little differently? Another example, too, like I've done multi day launches, and the trainings were typically, about an hour in length. And now my next launch, it's going to be a visibility challenge. And each session, the live sessions are going to be like 15 to 20 minutes. It's about getting one thing that somebody can very easily implement and put into action, but then there's going to be more accountability in the group. So instead of, like I said, investing this time in doing all these lives, because what I have gotten feedback on is people don't have the time. They also want to listen. They want to make it easy to listen, not just have to watch a video. So this time it's going to be a 4-day challenge, but the live training is going to be very short. So think about how you can apply that in your business, that you do something differently, see how it works. Like I said, you can always go back to the way you've always done things, but what happens if you have a great outcome? And I can't wait to see the results that we get with the visibility challenge too. All right, step number 5, be persistent. If you think about the most successful individuals in the world, actually even taking you back a step further, the folks with innovation, whether it was Albert Einstein, developing the Thomas Edison and developing a light bulb, they had to experiment again and again. They had the idea, but then they were persistent. They didn't let go. And too often I see that people give up too soon. They get discouraged and they give up too soon. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. You are going to have days, and there's no other way to put it, when the shit hits the fan. I had a brother, my healthy brother, 58 years old, passed in front of me in the ER on March 2nd, 2020. He thought he had the flu. He was very sick. He had a punctured bowel. Who knows how it happened? Something gastrointestinal. He became septic. He literally passed in front of me, flipped my whole world upside down. And then we went into a pandemic. So I knew I had to shift my business immediately if I was going to stay in business. I was grieving the loss of my brother, which was crazy. And we had all this uncertainty going around the pandemic, but I didn't stop. I had days where I completely lost it, didn't really get a whole lot accomplished, but I was still persistent. So that is about being persistent and consistent in the process. So it's like if you find yourself getting stuck, take a break. Look at it, from different eyes. Goes back to, if you keep looking at the same thing, you're going to have a scotoma and you're literally not going to see something. If an idea isn't working out, feel free to scrap it and then start again. It's okay. And the more you persist, the more you are determined, the more you're consistent with your actions, the more likely you are to achieve your goals. You don't have to make huge improvements. You're better off to make micro adjustments. These little tiny things that you do consistently is going to get you so much farther at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, than attempting to eat the whole elephant at once. And I think all too often we get discouraged because we're not achieving something right there. But it goes back to, when you relax, you see there's another way to do something, you let the creativity flow, then that's when opportunities come, that's when ideas come. All of these good things can happen. So it's about consistently taking small steps over time. So if you feel stuck, don't give up. Now, it really doesn't have to be complicated or confusing, I promise. And if you don't think you're a creative person, you're more like that numbers. In fact, one of my best friends in business as well, she's a CPA with an MBA and a business valuation designation. Jennifer has one of the most creative minds that I know. And you would think a numbers woman who works with CFOs that she's right over here, and she's not. She can flip over that total creative side. So don't think because you weren't born creative or you've never thought you had the creative gene that you can't get there. So with that, here's your recap. All right. So first step is be open to new ideas. You've got to be open to new ideas. If you're so stuck on how one thing is going to work, this is the way it's supposed to go, this is the way I've always been doing it, then you're never going to get the creativity to open and the new ideas to flow. So this is where exposing yourself to new information, new resources, new people, maybe it's new thought leaders online, but just exposing yourself to new information can help spark creativity. And as I've mentioned, your reticular activating system, your RAS, located in your brain, that when you get specific and you're like, all right, I need to get creative, because if you just say, I want to get creative, probably not going to work as well. But if you say, I need to get creative around a new offer or a new product or a new delivery, and you just say, that becomes the goal, you're not quite sure how you're going to get there, then your RAS goes to work to spot individuals, information, resources, and opportunities. Then that's when you start to get these creative thoughts that come in. I love it. It works all the time. I've been practicing and using my RAS since 2005. It is like a muscle. Once you start, I promise it will come to you. So a great thing to do is, you want to spot a yellow car or you want to spot a green car, start with something small. Maybe it's even the next time you go to the store, your RAS, like I said, it's not law of attraction, but when you're looking for a parking spot, what happens is your brain is picking up on very subtle clues. It sees movement of somebody maybe getting in the car. It sees brake lights. So practice playing with your RAS. Promise it works. All right. Tip number 2, research what other people are doing in your space. This does not mean that you're copying what people are doing in the space. It means you're going to go research what other people are doing. You want to look at seeing what they're doing well and where your unique framework or methodology, your unique spin, how you can do things differently. There's some sort of gap that you know that you can fill with your target audience, because you may have somebody who's doing something similar, but they're targeting 2 different types of individuals, or maybe one is going individual and one's going company. Then you want to think about how you can do things better. It's like, here's the gap. What can I do that is unique and different? And then it's, what is your perspective? What do you bring to the table in this process? But make sure that you're filling the gaps that your competitors are leaving open. And it depends on if you are more regional, if your geography, local, maybe to a city or a state or a region, versus you're anywhere online, but you still have a very targeted niche, then research both small competitors and big competitors as well. Super, super, super important. All right. Tip number 3, so important, let go of control. That goes back to, if we always think there's only one way to do something, then what happens is we literally develop blind spots. These are scotomas. You can look at something and not see it. You're certainly going to squash any creativity, but that's where, when you let go of control and know that there are many different ways that something can happen, you may not know what it is. Let go of control. And then that's what lets your subconscious open up. It also lets new ideas come in. So it doesn't mean that you give up on your goals. That's another important thing to think about. When you give up control, you're not giving up on your goals. You're just open to new opportunities in the process. All right. Number 4, a biggie, don't be afraid to experiment. Too many people do not start because they're afraid they're going to fail, so they don't even try. That comes down to a thing called self-efficacy. It's your belief in your ability to cause or bring about. Don't be afraid to experiment. What's the worst that can happen? Maybe go back and you do things the way you've always done things. But what happens if you find a new way, or maybe you create a new micro offer off of what you've been doing? So here comes another income stream off of something that's small. You've already got this created. It's kind of like the drive planning system. I already had it as part of the incubator, but I kept having people say, do you have something on productivity and goals and time and all this mindset stuff? It's like, oh, so there became this new idea with drive. So that's what I want you to think about too, is don't be afraid to experiment. And with that, try different methods and tools. If you're doing launches or workshops one way, then what can you do differently? So experiment. It's so important to do it. All right. And then number 5, be persistent. You've got to be persistent and consistent. Small steps daily are so important. And with creativity, maybe one day you go, all right, I'm going to leave myself open and I'm going to give myself time to brainstorm, or you go for a walk and the idea doesn't come. Guess what? The idea didn't come. That doesn't mean it's not going to, but be persistent and give those opportunities an idea. That goes back to, if you're forcing it, when you force your subconscious, it stops working. So that's why you want to be persistent, but sometimes you just got to step back and let go. And then the ideas come, the creativity comes, and then that's when you might, like I said, come up that amazing new idea that you can monetize for your business, which gives you more time once it's all created to do the things that you love in life. Because isn't that what this is all about? It's not about all work and no play and feeling exhausted at the end of the day. It's about living your life and having a business that you love, making an impact on others' lives and generating revenue in the process. Revenue is a good thing. So make sure that even if it feels tough, don't give up. Like I said, you never know when the idea is going to come. Persistent, be consistent with your goals. And then following these tips, you're going to be able to come up with better ideas. You're also going to be able to come up with more clients with that. So, with your next steps, I do want to give you one last, let me hit that again. All right. So, if you want the show notes, drop the word creative either in the chat, send me a DM. I'm happy to send them your way. And I mentioned the Drive planning system. It is brand new, excited to have it. It is my micro offer, and I'm officially launching it next week. So I will be posting details on the Drive planning system in the notes, and I can't wait to see you next time.